Before we get into God's ego death, I want to explain what ego death is itself. Ego death is a term that is used also when it comes to psychedelics. This is a very psychedelic end of the list, ain't it? But it's a term when it comes to psychedelics. And basically what it says is there is a point and a chance that when you take a certain amount of psychedelics, you experience something called an ego death. And what that is to where it feels like you spiritually die and you get reborn again. It's a rebirth that happens to you spiritually. And this happens with some people. They say that whenever they take certain psychedelics, that they can kind of see their inner self. And a lot of times it sounds violent and scary to me, but a lot of times people describe their soul literally getting ripped to pieces sometimes and put back together. People have mentioned that they've seen these entities, and these entities will look at them because they go in with this certain mindset of, I know what it is, I know what I'm doing, I'm cocky, I'm confident, blah, 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 blah. And these entities are just like, oh, you think you know reality? You think you know how all this works? And they attack you, and they will literally rip you to shreds. And people say it's gruesome. It somehow physically hurts, even though it's a spiritual thing or it's a psychedelic thing. But they say it hurts. But they say whenever they get ripped to pieces, they come back in a more humbled state that kind of understands their place in reality. So what does God's ego death mean? So if you know anything about the Bible, there are basically two major parts, right? There's the Old Testament, and then there's the New Testament. And what people have theorized is something weird happened to God in between the Old Testament and the New Testament, and we're not 100% sure what happened, but they describe that moment as God's ego death. If you read the Bible in the Old Testament, God is very different. God is scary as hell. God is somewhat wrathful. God is very judgmental. And God will smite and punish people over the smallest shit, like crazy shit. But then when you get to the New Testament, God's a lot more understanding, a lot more loving, a lot more forgiving, right? And a lot more patient even. God's a lot more patient when it comes to it. So they say, what happened between the Old Testament and the New Testament for, God to change its whole personality and to just kind of have that with almost no explanation as to why it happened. And that's essentially what God's ego death is talking about, is something happened to God somewhere along the way that caused God to just change personalities and be a lot cooler. Thank you for checking out the video. Please be sure to give us a like and a follow. Just starting out on TikTok, and it will go a long way if you guys could help us out with that. Stick around for more. We got more coming